Hello, my fellow Lobotomites. It is me, Aaron, and today we are going to be learning everything that you could possibly learn in life, except stuff that God would actually want you to know. So, what exactly are we learning today? Well, we're learning about what type of stuff my mind comes up with whenever I think of The Last Airbender. I created some ideas for a few new bending types that I wish were in the show, but sadly are not in the show. So today, I'll be telling you guys all of those. The first one I wanted to bring up is the first thing I wanted to bring up were some for airbenders. Airbenders, as it currently stands, only have one other form of bending, and it's not really bending at all. It's just the ability to fly. Man, the airbenders have no other forms of bending. All the other benders get other forms of bending, but airbenders don't. Typical. But I did come up with a few alternate forms of bending for airbenders, and now, oh my god, that made it too dark. Okay. The first one is, well, carbon bending, or greenhouse bending. Now, what exactly is greenhouse bending? Well, it's very simple if you know what greenhouse gases are. Basically, it allows airbenders to control greenhouse gases, like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, all that stuff. And it basically allows them to it can be used as a counter to firebenders by just not letting carbon or any greenhouse gases get near the fire that the firebenders produce, so that they can't use their bending. But it can also be really good for just getting a cloud of carbon dioxide and just tossing it at someone's face. Another thing it's good at is, well, anti-polluting the air. Yeah, anti-pollution. Yay! Woohoo! Yeah, boy! Yeah! The second form of bending I came up for airbenders is gravity bending, or physics bending. Now, no, it's not. It doesn't allow them to fly easier. No. Basically, it allows them to pick up objects, but not people. That requires a whole other skill cap that most airbenders probably won't get at. But basically, it allows them to the gravity gun and physics gun from Gmod? Basically that, but it also has the added feature of removing kinetic energy or adding kinetic energy to any objects. So basically, let's say this chair, for example. I can use physics bending on this. I just launch it across the sky. Very easy. I can add kinetic energy to it, so that, boom, slaps them in the face. Now, this cannot be used on water, fire, or, dirt, because, well, then airbenders would basically have the ability to, do all the bending, and then we wouldn't have a need for an avatar, would we? But basically, the airbenders could basically use this to pick up objects that other benders, just can't, like this soda ball, for example. They can pick up really small objects, nothing too big. If they wanted to do that, if they wanted to pick up very big objects, they would probably need, tons of training. And probably very, very hard to do, and very, tiresome to do. But basically what I get at is that they're able to, lift up and toss around, very small objects. Or at least, small enough objects to, that it doesn't tire them as much. The reason why, like I said earlier, they're not allowed to lift rocks, water, or fire. Yeah. I mean, maybe they could lift rocks, but it wouldn't be the same as, bending rocks or, bending water. They'd probably just be able to pick up the rock. They can't get the rocks from the ground. The rock has to already be detached from the ground. Just like a little pebble that was staying on the ground, or maybe a rock that was staying on the ground. They can't really do much with it except lift it up and then toss it. Unlike, earthbenders who are able to manipulate rocks to the fullest. Similar thing with water bending and fire bending. Not too overpowered. Just Another thing I wanted to mention is that I feel like combustion bending should belong to airbenders. My reasoning behind this is because science. Basically, well, here's the thing. During a video from the game theorists, they go over how if you run fast enough, you leave behind pockets of air that don't have anything in it. And then when they, all the stuff, like, just like comes back together, it combusts and it creates an explosion. I feel like airbenders would be able to do that pretty well. Just like they create a pocket of like, nothing that, and then like the air comes all back to that area and just combust. I feel like that's a reason why combustion bending should also belong to airbenders. So like now we have 3 forms of bending for airbenders now. That's good. Now we're moving on to waterbenders. Now I couldn't really think of many for waterbenders, considering that they already kind of have like almost everything. But then I remembered they only have water, ice, blood, and plant bending. They're completely forgetting snow and steam. I mean, I guess they technically could steam bend, but it just turns back into water instead of steam. Basically, what I thought for steam bending would be, it's kind of like air bending, except hotter and wetter. It's like kind of like how earthbenders use sand, They could use the sand to, like, create little tornadoes, create little sand balls, although which create sand gusts of air. Yeah, that's basically what steam bending is. They could use steam around them to, use kind of similar to air or sand bending. Which, pretty cool. Pretty cool. And then snow bending would kind of be like a weaker form of ice bending, but it could also kind of be used as sand bending as well, like kind of similar to sand bending as well, except more physical than the steam bending and way cooler and probably yellow. So like those were like the 2 that I came up for waterbenders. Couldn't really think of much besides snow and steam. Now we have the firebenders, which I came up with like a few. The first one I came up with was ash bending. Wait a minute. Hey, be quiet! Now, what's ash bending, you ask? Well, basically, a firebender is able to use ash, soot, embers that are still warm and hot, and they're able to use them kind of like, sand bending, I guess. Oh my god, a lot of the bendings that I came up with today are very similar to sand bending. I must not be too creative then. Anyway, they could use it kind of like, sand, how sandbenders use sand, where like they can kind of, like it's a little much more dusty than like, physical. They can't really use it for defense. It's more so just like a cleaning tool. But it can hurt a little bit. It could burn you a little bit. But really, there's not much physical impact to the soot or embers or stuff, because it's soot, it's dust, it's, So, like, it's hot. You can, like, basically cover someone's face with it, and it's pretty hot, pretty hot, and, like, it'll burn. It's basically, like, actually, now that I think about it, it would be kind of like a more physical version of firebending, now that I think of it. Like, instead of being able to light things on fire, they're able to just, like, toss, like, ash around, and it burns people's faces. Can't dispel that with water or sand. Or could they? Another one that I came up with was smoke bending. It basically, you control smoke. You control smoke. But the only way you can control smoke is by lighting the smoke up again. That's all you can do with smoke bending. Just light the smoke up again. Oh, I completely forgot about what I was talking about, the water bending portion of this thing. Another thing that you could probably do with snow bending is it's kind of like a combination of snow and ice bending. Is like maybe with snow bending you could kind of like cool someone down enough to where if you hit them with like a bit of snow, they just kind of freeze up. Kind of like that, that scene from Frozen 2 at the end of the movie where Elsa freezes when she drops to the floor. I know that she froze because, magic, but there's a scientific reasoning behind how she did freeze at the end of the movie. And it's for that scientific reason that, I feel like this would be an ability of a waterbender. Or, more accurately, a snowbender. Okay, back to firebenders. Another one they came up with was radiation bending. Hey, they added lightning bending. You would probably never suspect lightning bending to be part of firebending if you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, but it is. So going along with that, similar reasoning, we could give firebenders radiation bending. And it can be used for healing. It can be used to give cancer to people. It can be used to kill your enemies within a second. Yeah, it's pretty dangerous. You can also mutate your own body with it. But you probably shouldn't do that, or else you're probably going to get cancer yourself. So it's a pretty dangerous form of bending, as you could probably think of. Yeah, you might not want to mess around with that. Unless you're like a top tier healthy person, and you're an expert at, bending, you'd probably want to stay away from this type of bending because you can probably kill yourself in the process. Yeah. Okay, now on to the earthbenders. Now, there's not much you can do with earthbenders than what they have already done with lava bending, metal bending, normal bending. But I did think of a few things. For one, I thought that maybe they could have this salt bending, basically. And here's how I think that salt bending would have been created. It would be created because a few teenagers at a school wanted to start a food fight, and they didn't want to just have it be a normal food fight, so they decided to try and think of ways to, make the food fight a little bit more interesting. And they found out that the salt on the food is able to be bended. And so they created salt bending, where you could bend salt. But it didn't just stop there. After the creation of salt bending was created, they found out how to use it, kind of similar to blood bending. This form of bending is called bone bending, where you basically take the salt in someone's body, or in any creature or animal, and you basically manipulate the salt to control them. So now, now earthbenders can control people, just like how waterbenders can control people. I can just imagine someone just walking down the street and they see an earthbender and they're like, oh, hello. And then the earthbender just goes, you are mine now. And they're not, and because of this, they're not limited to when it's the full moon. Because earthbenders don't really have something that, restrains them or increases their power. Earth and airbenders don't really have something that increases their power, really. Only water and firebenders do. So, they don't really need the help of the moon. They could just, start doing bone bending as soon as possible. Now, as for origins of these, I thought of a few origins. So, for the, I already told you the origin for salt bending that I thought of. Wait a minute. So, I came up with a few other origin stories for some of the other bendings I created. So, number one, radiation bending. The way radiation bending was created was similar to, not similar, was because of the fact that industries didn't want to waste more power on, create radiation, blah, 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 blah. So they tried finding a way to, just make making power plants, easier. They just create radiation bending to, increase the amount of radiation that gets turned into power. Industrialized radiation bending, basically. But instead, they just got into another form of bending that could really help them power stuff. Could really only, give people cancer. And then for, oh frick, my brain just frozen. Oh no. And then for for greenhouse bending, we know the air bending form that I talked about earlier. For greenhouse bending, I thought of, hey, what if the airbenders wanted to try to find a way to purify the air, because their world was going to be heated up in a few years from now, because all the carbon dioxide in the air. So they discovered that, hey, they can manipulate greenhouse gases. So greenhouse bending was created. And they depolluted the air using greenhouse bending. And then steam bending, I came up with a good one for it. People in the jungle, waterbenders who lived in the jungle, or, explorers who went to the jungle who were waterbenders, they needed a way to, waterbend at all times. And they didn't want to take the water away from plants, And sure, there are rivers and stuff in the jungle, but here's the thing, they lived up in the trees. They lived up in the trees because, all the dangerous stuff on the floor. So what did they do? They used the air around them, or more specifically, the moisturized steam in the air. Steam bending, yay! Man, today was really an uneventful video, but I did make a script for this video. So I guess this is the end of this video, and I guess you should now subscribe to this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that which not. And I'll probably see you guys tomorrow when I release my other video that I worked on. Goodbye, lobotomites! Subscribe, or else I'm gonna come to your house and kill you all.